Hello everybody, I'm back making a video. I'm making a video a little bit later than I had hoped to make a video. I was going to make one sooner, but the reason I didn't was because I had my own serious problem that I still have, and that is being hit with tinnitus, unfortunately. It started about a month and a half ago. And quite honestly, it's turned everything upside down for me during this time. It's really, for me, I know people suffer from all kinds of difficult things and illnesses and other aspects of life that are difficult for them. But this has been the toughest thing that I've had to deal with, I would say. I thought that I dealt with various difficulties and difficult moments in my life, but this has been the toughest. Uh, it's for a long time I was just struggling to get through days. Even now, it still isn't easy. Um, it's really wrecked my sleep. There were nights where I could hardly sleep at all, and I've now had to take pills to get to sleep, to get at least a few hours of sleep. Of course, I am doing things uh, to try to get to a point where I don't hear it anymore. And I know there's things you can do, and I've already seen some people, and I've got appointments. I've got more appointments, so I do hope to get there. But for the past weeks, it's been difficult. It's basically been every day, all day. There's this horrible ringing. I used to think tinnitus was actually something that wasn't like that. I never really looked into it. You often don't look into things until you have the problem yourself. I thought it was something that people get from time to time. I know, I think for some people it is, and also for some people it's something you'll get for a day or two and then it passes. But for me, it's been very hard because it's been pretty much for the whole day, every day, different levels, but still there. The only time I get away from it for the time being is just when I sleep. But yeah, that's why I didn't make one earlier. But in order to, you know, people obviously I've had people around me that have been very, well, I say obviously, it isn't necessarily obvious, but I've had people around me who have helped me through the very difficult moments. I've got this one really wonderful friend who's, despite being in another country, in fact, on another continent, has sent me all kinds of things to help me. She sent me this white noise machine that helps people sleep at night when they struggle because of this ringing that they can hear. So I turned that on. She's also sent me a number of books, and that's actually the main thing I'm going to talk about today, because obviously I want this to be Catholic related, because that is the channel. Is some of the books that I've got and that I've been reading, and then my friend sent me 3 books to help me get through the days and read something while I'm struggling with this. One of them was this one, this interview with John Paul II, Crossing the Threshold of Hope. That is really, I've finished it. I read the whole thing in I think 2 days because I've been spending a lot of time reading, and it's really interesting. There's a lot of questions for John Paul II. There's questions that you might ask yourself sometimes as a Catholic that you struggle to understand, not necessarily questions about, you might be at a point where, yes, you're a person of faith, you're a Catholic, you believe in God, but there's certain things you don't get, like why are there so many other religions, or are we the Vatican? Is the Vatican, is Rome the only one that's right? What about other Christians who pray and they also go to church and they also worship Jesus and believe he's the Son of God? What about them? I mean, aren't they also trying to live good lives and basically on the right path? So there's questions like this in here, as well as many others, that are really good to read if you've ever thought about these things and looked into that. And you might well have looked online and found different apologists or people, who really study, Catholic kind of Catholics who are, intelligents, who have studied a lot and they can give you various answers. But I think to have the Pope Saint Paul, John Paul II, as a source is really good for some of these questions, And the questions are here and they are answered. So I would certainly recommend this book, this one right here, that I've finished reading. I also got another one that I've started reading but haven't finished, by St. John of the Cross, The Dark Night of the Soul. This one is a really difficult one, actually. This one is, it's written in a way that's really deep, and there's elements of it that I've honestly struggled to understand. And it's also, from what I can tell, from what I have understood, a very, I mean, St. John of the Cross is very, he's very hard, let's say, on people. He doesn't, if you're struggling, if you're suffering, because I feel I am suffering at the moment, this doesn't make you, this basically almost says to you, you think you're suffering? Like, that's exactly what's supposed to be happening. And there were times, because I've been praying during this, and I've got people who have been praying for me, lots of people, even a priest and various people. And one of the things I've wanted to say, I said, God, could you just take this away from me? If you want to give me some other suffering, fine, but this one is too difficult to deal with. It's psychologically draining. I can't even, not let alone, not only did I not have the will to do things physically, I didn't have the will to do things mentally. Even to just, it was a problem to think for a while, because it was just so annoying. And I was like, please. And here, St. John of the Cross says, some people, they want to swap their crosses for something else. They think that's going to make them feel better. And that isn't the way. And he really, I mean, no matter how many good things you do here, no matter how many good things you think you've done, St. John of the Cross will make you feel like that is nothing. So I took a bit of a break from that. But it's one of those books that really, if you want to get deep into it, if you really want to be like, right, I want to be as good a Catholic as possible, St. John of the Cross will explain to you some ways you can do that, and some ways that you might think are unreachable at some points. But yeah, let's just say if you're a Catholic who just tries to be a nice person, goes to church once a week, then this will make you feel like you're an awful, terrible person and a sinner, an awful sinner. I mean, we're sinners anyway, but yeah, that's another book I've been reading. I've got another one as well that I haven't started yet, but it looks like it's going to be interesting. It's The Story of a Soul, Saint Therese of Lisieux. I just had a quick glance. It seems she had quite a short life. Lived only until, I think, about 24 years of age. But yeah, I'm not going to say too much about this because I haven't started yet, but it's another one that my wonderful friend has sent me that I am going to read at some point. One that I did read, I think some of you, or even most of you, if not all of you, will be aware of Catherine Emmerich, the German nun, who for the last, I believe it was 11 years of her life, she was very ill and she had to remain in bed for that time. And she had numerous visions, a lot of visions. In fact, she was given the gift of having these visions. And I do also think all these visions are available to read on her there's a website for her that has all of that written out. I think it has all of it, or at least it has a lot of major chunks of it, but I think it might have all of it. And there's also a book where you can get all of those in one collection, and I think that's a very thick book because there was a lot of it. I was reading in Polish, the one that she had about the crucifixion of Jesus, called Passion. In fact, if you didn't know, you may well know, the Mel Gibson movie was actually based not only on the biblical scripture, but also the visions of Catherine Emmerich. So a lot of those scenes you saw in that were actually very much taken from the description of what she saw. So in that case, the things you see in that movie might well be quite close, at least some of them, to how it was. She was beatified in 2004 by St. John Paul II. It might well have been his last beatification, or one of the last ones, because it was in the later part of 2004, and it was one of the last. I don't know if it was the last one he did, but it was a few months before he died. So she was beatified. There might be people who don't want to completely look at the visions she had. There might be Catholics who are like, well, because when the church was beatifying her, they didn't use these visions that were written up as one of the reasons for beatifying her. They didn't use that as criteria, because they know it was written up. It wasn't written up by her. It was written up by somebody whose name escapes me. Let's see if I can have a quick look. It was written up by, let me think, got it written here, Clemens Brentano. She was telling him her visions, and she had this amazing gift not only to have them, but to then remember them in detail. I think she might have had some of them more than once, and he was then writing them up. And I think the church decided, because it can't be known how much of that, because he did edit it slightly, probably for just so it read well, but because they can't be sure how much or how strongly he edited it, they didn't want to use that as a criterion. But the very fact that she's beatified in the Catholic Church means that there's, if she was seen as someone who was just saying things that she saw, and the church was really doubtful of that, they wouldn't have beatified her. Just St. John Paul II wouldn't have done that. So that's why I take this quite seriously, and I read through this one, and I got to say, I mean, I've seen the movie, and to be honest, reading this was actually almost more difficult even than watching the movie. It was written, some of the stuff she says there's such detail, and it's so graphic, and there's also elements there that you haven't read anywhere else. You haven't read in the Bible, and you haven't. They're not talked about. She saw certain things that are extra details that you wouldn't know about. So I would really suggest having a look at that book, because it really does. When I was reading it, there was moments where I was really finding it hard to read it. I was just like, oh, this is awful. Like the things that she was saying, and she was able in her visions to see the thoughts that people were having, the anger, and the fury that they had towards Jesus, and then the sorrow and the pain that was suffered by those around him. She was able to see things that were going on around, see angels and things that were around people that couldn't be seen by the people. And it's a really interesting book, actually. I found it incredible. And often people will read something and then watch something, and watching it is the harder, because, like, if it's graphic, for example, that's the one where they really get that feel for it. Whereas I would say, having seen the film, that the book was very descriptive in describing the pain and suffering of Jesus Christ for us, and I would absolutely recommend that. Like I said, I think you can find probably the whole thing online on the website. She had lots of visions. She even had visions of how the world began and all these. It's a really fascinating thing to read. But I have this one in book form. Sometimes I prefer to read these things in book form, and thankfully we had this at home. And it's, sometimes reading it online can be, because you're going to be staring at a screen for a long time, whereas it's sometimes easier to relax and just read it. And one more book that I've also started, but it's going to take me a long time to read, is this is quite old. You can see it isn't in the greatest condition, but it's the Diary of Saint Faustina, also in Polish. It has about 700 plus pages, so I'm not close to finishing that yet, but I have been going through it. I'm on page 7. I'm up to page 70 right now, and it's, I think a lot of the main messages that Saint Faustina gave us from Jesus, with probably the biggest one being the picture, that the image of Jesus, or she saw Jesus and then she was asked by him to have this painted, and it's the merciful Jesus, and it's venerated around the world. But there were other messages too, and a lot of them, sometimes they get listed on websites. So these are the main things that St. Faustina gave us. And it's with other visionaries too. And there's various apparitions where they say, here's the main messages from Fatima or from somewhere else. But I thought it would be a good idea to actually just read the whole thing. And it's been done in a way, her diary, that's kind of almost kept to how she scribbled things down. So she would write one thing, and then she would break off a sentence, then she would write something else from a different moment, even from before that. And they've tried to, I think, from what I've been reading, keep it very much to how she read it, rather than trying to tidy it up too much. I think they've corrected grammatical things and grammatical errors, but generally they've kept it to almost how she had it. So I'm going through that as well, and it's an interesting read. It really goes through so many different moments and thoughts and that she had, and prayers that she had, and the way she was treated. She talks about priests and having a very how important it is to have a good confessor, and various things that I'll probably be able to talk about more once I've completed that book, and it might take me a while to complete it. But yeah, these are the things I've been doing. I've been reading books most of the time, as well as doing the odd things around the house. It's been something I've been occupying myself with, and I do recommend the books. I certainly recommend this one that I've read. If you haven't read it, the interview with John Paul II, numerous questions for him. I do recommend looking into Catherine Emmerich, the German nun, if you haven't done so. And yeah, the others, I mean, I haven't completed the other books yet, but I might be able to talk more about them when I do. But yeah, this is the situation I'm currently in. It's been hard. I have been suffering. I'm trying to take it in a very Christian way and just get through it and see it as something that we should. It's hard to embrace suffering. It really is when you actually have to do it. It's easier to tell people to embrace it until you suffer yourself. But I've been trying, and yeah, so I decided to make a video, and I will try to make more videos, kind of not space them out too much. Thank you very much for listening to me, and I hope to make another video soon.